Welcome to the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. I'm Laurie Rivers with you, here to help you with some inspiration to get those aspirations out into the world. Well, last week was a doozy, was it not? We had quite an interesting cascade of events. I talked about that in episode 18, where I gave you a heads up about that eclipse and then Mercury retrograde and the moon conjunct Uranus, and boy, was there all kinds of stuff and a little bit of a kaboom here and there. We are moving fast towards May. The big event this week is Mars sextile Uranus, and I don't hear a lot of astrologers talking about it. Maybe it's not as sexy to them. Maybe they don't understand what it means, but it's going to be kind of volatile this week as well with that sextile forming, and it's forming right now. It's in the approach. So we could see some pretty wild things happening, especially in commercial real estate and banking, finances, supply chains, you name it, things to do with households, families, and then of course anything to do with gender identity, especially for people who identify as female. So there's a whole bunch of stuff up on deck, and I'll talk about that a little bit in the next segment. Also looking at the astrology of May. May is kind of an interesting month. It's all interesting, isn't it? We're winding down the node in Taurus, May through June into July, when the node will reach Aries. That's its own kettle of fish. If you've paid attention to the 2023 year ahead reading that I gave actually it was almost 3-hour seminar, but the 2 hours that I talked straight and exhausted myself on for months is up on my link page. And if you haven't been paying attention to that, well, you should. It has been interesting to watch these things unfold. There will be quite a bit of instability in May because the fabric of our reality is shifting, and it's shifting for good reason. So the status quo is very unstable, and we're going to see a lot of weird stuff happen, and that's going to hit us economically. It's going to hit us in the basic needs arena, housing, food. But it's not a reason to despair. There's actually a lot of opportunity available if you know how to pivot. Okay, this is something very, very important to remember. All right, so that's something I'm going to talk about. Also talking with astrologer Jennifer Russell, who is one of my pancakes. That's what we lovingly call the apprentices. Jennifer is helping me out with Planet of the Month Club, and she'll be co-teaching with me for the Natal Chart Foundations course that starts May 20th. The Natal Chart Foundations course. This is for beginning astrologers, people who have been trying to learn it, maybe been trying to learn on your own, and you're trying to piece the puzzle pieces together and it hasn't been making sense. We're going to walk you through the beginning of the ABCs of astrology, build you up into where you get some actual chart practice, okay, of learning how to take a look at your own astrology chart and put it together and learn how to start synthesizing. Will you be fluent by the end? I cannot promise you that, but I can promise you won't be as confused. If you've been waiting for the intermediate program where you get some real chart reading skills, that will start at the end of May. Now, I don't want you holding off for that if you still can't recognize your glyphs, okay? If you're still having to look up what sign is what when you look at a chart, you need to take the beginning class, because you're not going to get anything out of the intermediate class. And I'll be interviewing people to make sure they have the skill sets before they walk into the intermediate class, because we're going to power through things. All right. So I'm teaching all levels this year, getting people ready for professional mentorship for those who will be ready to start there in the fall. So the intermediate and beginning advanced it's kind of both, is covered in what I'm calling Read Like a Pro. Read Like a Pro. It's a foundational intermediate / advanced beginner class. Excited about that. I don't have it up for you yet, but that's all right. That's all right. We will get it up shortly. Before the end of April. I promise. I promise. Jen and I are going to be talking about the joy of teaching and what it does for us as astrologers and the difference between a reading and a class and what our role is and why we do it. Jen is a very passionate instructor and very passionate astrologer and lifelong learner. And I love to watch her grow. All right. Let's just get on with it. We'll do patron shout outs and I'll do some Q&A at the end of the podcast. So hang tight. We got a good show for you today. All right, let's talk about that sextile forming between Mars and Uranus or Uranus. Either pronounce it, you could say Uranus, that's probably more correct than Uranus. But I say Uranus just because, well, if you have my sense of humor, then you laugh when you say Uranus because it makes for really good jokes. And I just got in the habit on TikTok because there's a lot of teenagers there and I didn't need that in my life. So anyway, what's a sextile? A sextile is a very active aspect. It's a supportive aspect. It's a very energizing aspect. And when we're looking at a natal chart, there's a lot of oomph to that. It's active. It's, a trine is kind of unrestricted. You don't have to think about it. You can't miss a sextile. It's like a rushing river. It's like a level 5 rapids. It's like having a whole cheerleading squad going, go team, go team. It's a lot of active energy. And having Mars sextile Uranus, we're going to just see, I just think we're going to see some real financial stuff go on. I think we're going to see some financial scandals. I think we're going to see some interesting things go on with interest rates, commercial real estate, even the stock market. And what you could see is like a selling off and a rising up or a crashing, or I don't think it's a total, meltdown, but I do think we're going to see some real destabilization globally at different currencies, definitely commercial real estate. And interestingly, I saw that the CEO of BlackRock sold 7% of his interest, of his stake in BlackRock, which doesn't sound like a lot, does it? He has a whole lot, but he sold 7%. That means he's liquidating cash to pay something off. Okay, it's a significant stake, but I'm wondering how leveraged are these guys and are interest rates getting them? Okay, and the only thing that trickles down is stress. Money never trickles down, but do they like to put the squeeze economically, right? Now we could worry about that, or we can innovate. That this energy on a global level is very destabilizing. Okay, and that could go with supply chains, food supply. Again, I'm telling you, grow your food, grow your food, grow your food. I'm going to digress for just a moment. Speaking of food, Tammy and Lucy. Do you remember Tammy and Lucy? Tammy's my tangerine and Lucy is my lemon. I was worried about them, speaking of food supply, because Tammy gave me the most beautiful tangerines. Lucy, I got one lemon off of her, not because of her. I had to learn how to care for the citrus. Remember, I grew up gardening in the Northwest. Southern California is new to me gardening-wise. And so I have learned, and they have survived. They have survived. So if you're in the Discord, expect pictures. Okay, I'm going to show how resilient these plants are. So You want to grow some food, guys. All right. You do. You can, even if you have a very small space, you can carve out some room for a little hydroponic garden. You can get one for under $60. And I know that can be a chunk of change when you have a lot of other stuff, but you can grow salad greens, you can grow tomatoes, you can grow a lot of different things in a hydroponic garden. I've got one right now with a little tomato started and a really beautiful cucumber that's about to flower. And it's inside because I've had such weird weather here in Southern California. Okay. So this is a good time to kind of get some gardening started. You might even be able to get stuff started and accelerate it. All right, whether you're doing it inside, outside. If you're a patron, remember we have a whole thread on food preparation, gardening resources. We talk about hydroponic gardening. We talk about outdoor gardening, container gardening. If you've got a little porch or backyard, or even a little deck, a little balcony, you can grow something. Hell, when my parents lived in Mongolia, and yes, they lived in Mongolia briefly, they were in the Peace Corps there. My mom really didn't do well on the local diet. She needed more veggies. And it was sub-zero temperatures a good time, part of the time they lived there. And my dad, using like a little shop light and their window box, managed to grow my mom some carrots. And I can't remember what else they grew, but I remember carrots and onions or something like that. And kind of saved my mother's digestive tract that way. But even then, in a little tiny window box with a little heat lamp, they managed to grow some veggies in sub-zero temperatures. It can be done. Where there is a will, there is a way. We're hearing a lot about the difference between rugged individuality and collectivism. I think that's up on deck with this Mars sextile Uranus, because Mars is in Cancer right now. That's like family energy. That's the core nucleus. I don't think it's nuclear family, though. I think that's a very modern concept. I think in general, it's the people closest to you. And I grew up with an extended family, and so like I had third, fourth, fifth cousins I knew considered in the tight group. So I think if we look at things a little more traditionally, it's who are you connected to, and it's sextile again Uranus and Taurus, which is disrupting. There we go. I can talk. Disrupting the status quo. Okay. It's disrupting the soil. The soil has been leached of its minerals. It's been leached of its vitality. And it has to be disrupted and infused with energy in order to create new stability. And Mars is coming through. Mars is coming through double digging and digging in some nutrients. Notice I didn't say rototilling. I'm all about the double digging, though. I gardened that way for years. Did a little permaculture. But anyway, somebody was saying the idea of homesteading itself is rugged individualism. And I think some of the ways it is taught is that. But, and I think the idea of going off into your own back 40 and not communicating with the world, I do think that's inherently selfish. I do. I think that's an inherently selfish idea. But I think if we learn to be self-sufficient, that includes interdependence with other people. I think we can learn how to share resources. I think we can learn how to communicate, collaborate, and play. I think, we get a lot of people sharing ideas, sharing access to resources in our Discord, encouraging one another. Hell, a little bit of an encouragement goes a long way. Speaking of that sextile energy, right? I think we all need to look at how we can conserve and caretake resources in a way that allows our communities to be comfortable, and moving past that self-interestedness is going to be interesting as Pluto moves forth through Aquarius. Again, we're just getting a little sneak peek of that. We're not to the full era just yet. So now is the time to start planning, the things we've observed. And I can tell you, we're going to get to a crisis point before Pluto is in Aquarius too much longer. Probably this year, definitely next year, where these needs we have as a society have to be met collectively and not just on an individual level. And we're going to get an idea of that this week. We'll see it again next year. We'll have a revisiting of this. But yeah, so this week is going to be a little disruptive, but that can be good. So make sure if you get inspired, you write down your ideas. And have some talk in community. Don't let yourself get shut down. I mean, this idea of social awkwardness, or we are social beings, okay? Where we get awkward is when we're forced into groups because of age or race or gender identity, or we get forced into spaces without a natural connection. And I'm not talking about like-mindedness. I mean, like, everybody in the Awake Space Discord obviously likes astrology. That's not enough to make a friendship, okay? It's enough to get a conversation going, right? There has to be other things that come into the mix. But one of the things I love is how people are committed to making things better, not just for themselves, but for their individual communities, the people around them, and the community we're creating. That's the energy we need to create to move forward into the future. It's not just a place to, a lot of places that claim to be a community are a place where people can sit and bitch about life. And yeah, life is hard. But I like to say, save the bitching for therapy, okay? Because when you're in a larger community, unless somebody's a licensed therapist, they're not necessarily equipped to deal with it. Now, we do have the venting chamber because everybody has a moment, right, where we need to vent, right? But in general, finding common ground, having productive conversations, whether it's about politics or music or the arts or how to socially support people or just empowering people. It's one thing to vent, and it's another thing to say, hey, so I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying to apply for a job. I'm not sure how to use this thing. Anybody else know how? That's a productive question. Okay. Big difference between stupid ratchet website. Screw you. You get it? You get the difference. Okay. And what I love is when somebody has a genuine ask or needs some help with something, either technical or finding a resource. Man, people are right there with them. That's the energy we need to build this week with Mars sextile Uranus. All right. So, all right, I'm going to do some patron shout outs. We're at 800 patrons. Super excited, guys. Moving on to the 1,000 patron mark. That's my goal for this year. I hope to exceed that goal this year because, again, that helps us grow the podcast. I'd like to get a billboard. What do you think? I think a billboard would be cool. Is it a vanity thing? Kind of. Not gonna lie. My ego would like that. And I think it would just be cool. Don't you guys think it would be cool? Get a billboard in LA? The Awake Space Astrology Podcast. Yeah. I kind of feel like we're talk radio here, It'd be like Z Morning Zoo, only it's the Awake Space. Yeah. All right. Let's do some patron shout outs. I'm getting silly. All right, you know what time it is. The music is playing. I'm so excited that we're at 800 patrons. And I have a really fun announcement before I read out everybody's names. Patreon, and I talked about this. I talked about this in the Crunch Report for the Gemini Moon. Patreon is putting in a new feature, and if you're one of my patrons, you know about it. I'm not going to talk about it out loud here, but if you're one of my patrons, you'll hear about it in my Crunch Report. Okay. So as a Patreon ambassador, I get to help test out new features that help make Patreon better for all creators there, whether they're creating games or podcasts or music or, intuitive spaces, engineering, science, wildlife refuge. I've met the coolest creators going to Patreon ambassador meetings. And so we're going to roll out a new feature this week. So pay attention to those Crunch Reports, all right? And you'll find out how to play with it. We're gonna be alpha testing, which is so exciting. All right. Our newest patrons are Charlie, Chloe, Verena, Krista, Rosina, Natalie, Michelle, Dominic, Kaya, Kate, or that might have been Kaya, Megan, Stephanie, Alyssa, Margaret, Brienne, Crystal, Angela, Mountaintop Artist, Shanessa, Cecilia, Woodcocks, Kimberly, Nicole, Glitch Paladin, love that name, Todd and Abby, Tennessee Street Cat, Carla, Mark, Andrea, Laura, Alexis, Brooke, Adele, Steve of Finland, Evie, Emmy Hurst, Brooke, Jess, Jana, and Angela. Thank you, guys. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you. Without you, there is no me. Make sure you're paying attention to the Crunch Reports. Read the posts, because that is where you get your special patron perks. You get a ton of learning resources, videos, books I've written, access to classes before other people, and special discounts. All because you sponsor the podcast here. All right. Thank you so much. All right, up next, we're going to talk about May's astrology. We're going to talk a little bit about May's astrology. And then you guys will get to listen to some Astro Chat with astrologer Jennifer Russell. All right, let's talk about May's astrology. Whoa, boy. All right, we start May 1st with Pluto stationing retrograde. Okay. May is over. No, I'm kidding. Now, remember, I told you retrograde does not mean bad. But Laurie, everybody else says freak out. Everybody else makes it sound like it's the end of the world. And if everybody was jumping off a cliff, would you listen? Come on, guys. We're not lemmings. Let's not. Okay. People like to get clicks and ratings. Okay. People like to get clicks and ratings. And I may never be the most popular astrologer in the world, but I'll definitely be accurate, and I'm never going to BS you. So yeah, we got Pluto retrograde. On the 5th, here in the States, 6th in the UK, we have the full moon in Scorpio, which happens to be a lunar eclipse. That's going to be a doozy. I'm not going to lie. That's going to be a doozy. And then Venus enters Cancer on the 7th. Okay, that's going to be interesting. The energy will change up that day. Mercury stations direct May 14th. Remember, Mercury is only retrograde for about 3 weeks. Pluto lasts about 5 months or so. Remember, Pluto spends like half of its time retrograde. Okay, it's not a big surprising thing. They'll be like, in a rare astrological event, Pluto stations retrograde. No, it doesn't. It's not rare. It happens every freaking year. Pluto spends about half of its time. It's not 5 months. It's a little half of its time, about 6 months retrograde. Okay. All right. Saturn spends 5 months a year. Okay. And it's apparent retrograde. It appears to be moving backward. To all of you astronomers listening in, trying to get me with a gotcha moment. Dude, we know. We know it doesn't really go retrograde, but we live on this planet. Our perceptions shape our reality. And that's why I do geocentric astrology, okay? That's why we're doing tropical astrology. It's from a geocentric point of view. That means an Earth-centered point of view, because that's where we're freaking living our lives. Sheesh. All right, so Pluto goes retrograde on the 1st, May 5th. We have a full moon in Scorpio that happens to be a lunar eclipse. Bad news for King Charlie there. May 7th, Venus enters Cancer. The 14th, Mercury is direct. The 16th, Jupiter enters Taurus. And you're going to have all these astrologers telling you how great that's going to be. But wait, there's more. As it enters Taurus, it makes an immediate square to Pluto, which, thank God, is retrograde, because we'd have a complete financial meltdown globally if Pluto was direct. So thank your lucky stars Pluto's going to be retrograde. I'm sure we're going to have some big financial news that day, and I'm absolutely convinced we'll hear about a food crisis. We already know that the rice shortage is devastating globally. You have to remember, rice is a huge staple worldwide, and there is a shortage. Okay, crops have been absolutely decimated by global warming. Okay, by climate change. You don't like the word global or the term global warming? Climate change. Okay, climate change is not about weather. It's about an overall climate change. Yes, there are natural cycles, and hello, human contributions have accelerated and emphasized it, and I don't want to hear any argument about it on my podcast. You don't like it, go listen to somebody else. Okay, so we're gonna hear a lot about that in May. May 19th is the new moon in Taurus. May 19th is the new moon in Taurus. Mars enters Leo on May 20th. Mars enters Leo, which means it'll be opposite Pluto. Okay, May 20th. This should be some big bada boom energy. Okay, thank God again that Pluto will be retrograde. It diminishes that transformational energy. So it'll be a little later for us. May 21st is Gemini season starts, as the sun ingresses into Gemini. And of course, Mars will directly oppose Pluto. The sun will be trine Pluto, and the sun will be sextile Mars. It's a lot. It's a lot, guys. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. And that's setting us up for some real big bada boom energy in June, because Pluto will retrograde back into Capricorn June 11th. So you have to remember, Pluto in Capricorn is about destabilizing of the status quo. All right, Pluto in Aquarius is restructuring and reforming society. Okay, and so the status quo has to be upended before we can restructure society. So put your helmets on. It's going to be a bumpy ride. But remember, we were born for these times. It's not a time to whine and complain. You could look at this with a glass half full. You could look at it with a glass half empty. You could look at it with a glass, what glass attitude. In fact, that's the one I'm taking. What glass? Like, let's build something forward here. You know? And yeah, I look at the headlines too and go, oh my God, this is an utter shit show. But notice it's almost cartoonish. It's almost like laughable in the inanity of it, in the stupidity of it all, in the lack of finesse. Like, it's not even like people are trying anymore, right? Right? It's been that way for a couple of decades. When they lied to us in the past, like 40 years ago, they tried harder. That's all I have to say. But we can focus on the negative, or we can say, okay, in this chaos, there is opportunity. What can we do to grow here? What can we do to build here? A couple of episodes ago, I had Asanabe on, who's a great teacher, a great instructor. Okay. Listen to him. Listen to what he's got to say. All right. All of us who are teachers are saying very similar things. We're all part of the same team. The details of what we say might differ. But when you get to the heart of it, we're saying, hey, this life here on the planet is about being connected to the planet. This life is meant to be lived. You're born, you die. What you do in between is called living. That's your purpose. Okay. I know you think that a purpose is supposed to be lofty, that you're supposed to, channel some ascended master or be Johnny Appleseed or be a great civil rights lawyer. And it could be all of those things. Or it could be forming an intentional community, creating a workers' cooperative. I'm going to be reaching out to the LA Co-op Labs and see if I can get them on this podcast. I want people to hear how important it is for people to form workers' cooperatives. It doesn't have to be hard. It isn't necessarily easy, but neither is having job insecurity working for a corporation who just wants to use you up and spit you out long before you retire. Okay, my friends? There is no safety in this world unless we create it together. And those are the solutions I can think of. And yeah, a lot of them are economic. I don't see it separate from spiritual endeavor. I think one of the reasons the bad guys got away with a lot of BS was because there was this rhetoric over the last 100 years that if you're spiritual, you're supposed to be above it, right? Even though in the traditions I was raised in, they said to be in the world but not of it. You still have bills to pay. You still have taxes to pay. You still have to keep the lights on somehow. And it's way nicer to be comfortable than uncomfortable. I don't see wanting to be comfortable as a bad thing. We've been dealing with that in the Planet of the Month Club. Looking at Venus and the desire nature. And the word desire itself can trigger off a lot. Okay, so May is very disruptive energy, which is very uncomfortable for Taurus season. Okay, because Taurus season likes to be comfortable. It likes to be sated. All right, hedonism falls under Taurus. Yeah, do you remember Futurama and Hedonism Bot? Such a Taurus move. And I say that with love, by the way, to my Tauruses listening. So the disruption foments. It gets frothy. Okay. It ferments. It becomes like social kombucha. All right. Get some booch. All right. So things are moving and bubbling and there's upheaval and it's opening doors to opportunity for social restructuring. And for those of us who are the vanguard of change, for those of us who are here to lay the tracks for the future, for those of us who are here to help people learn how to communicate, collaborate, and play, well, it's kind of go time. All right. So if you've been feeling that urge to get into community, you don't have to build anything new. Join something and start communicating. Hello. Come in and say hi. You don't have to start a new game. Join a game that's in play. All right. And then the end of May, it's rocky. It's just rocky. It's just rocky. It just is. It's just, yeah. It's just gonna be a thing. Getting us ready for Dune. Don't worry, I'll keep you apprised. Got the new horoscope format up and running. I'm liking it. I've added the mundane horoscopes to the beginning of it. You can just flip through if you don't want to read the mundane. You can flip through. But that way, new patrons don't have to go look for the mundane horoscopes that I put out every month at the beginning of the month. Those should be interesting. I'm starting to work on those so they can come out. Because we're in the last week of April. How crazy is that? And it seems like our months are just like front loaded with disruptive energy. And then we get to that end of the month, and it's almost like even the universe is tired. It's kind of like, okay, I did a lot. Okay, I did a lot. Right? So, yeah. Alrighty. So, that's what it is. The universe has done a lot. We've done a lot. Deep breaths. We'll get through this together. I've done a couple of live streams. I talked about the one that's the Mercury Survival Guide. I'll get that up on YouTube. But I've been doing some intuitive card readings where I talk about the astrology kind of in a story form. I did one tonight. It is the 23rd. Oh, it's 11:11 p.m. as I look at to see what date it is. And on April 23rd, I did a live stream on TikTok, and I'll put that one up. That was a good one. Hoping to inspire you to get those aspirations out in the world. You don't have time to let your ego get in the way, guys. We've got to start holding hands as we cross the street. All right. Let me inspire you with a wonderful conversation with astrologer Jennifer Russell and I in some Astro Chat. All right, I've got astrologer Jennifer Russell with me, also known as Moo Jen in the Discord. And one of the things I love about Jen, and there are many things I love about Jen, is her interest in neuroscience and how it pairs right up with astrology, and her very strong desire to become a teacher of astrology. Welcome, Jen.
Hello.
Hello. How
Glad
you
to
doing?
be back. Oh, good.
Yeah. So you've been helping me out with Planet of the Month. How's that going? How are you feeling about that?
I really love that space.
Mm-hmm.
People that come in are so dedicated to learning and figuring themselves out. And we have such amazing discussions.
Mm-hmm.
It is really a lot of what I had dreamed it would be.
Oh, I
Just
love that.
people, yeah, talking and discovering more about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I really love all the insights, and hearing other people talk about it really helps me. Um, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
That's why we
wonderful. It's just
teach,
a
right?
really good space. Yeah.
It is. It is a good space. Gosh, today's discussion was super fun. Hearing
Yeah. I teared
everybody's
up multiple times, but in a good way. I was so
right.
happy.
It was inspiring. Yeah.
Mhm.
Isn't that one of the things that kind of makes you want to teach? Is I'll let you fill in those blanks, but that.
Oh, yeah. It's um like that moment of aha or inspiration,
Mhm,
um, either seeing it happen for someone else or coming to that mutually through discussion.
mhm,
It's really like a beautiful moment.
mhm,
Um, and yeah, every time you teach, you do learn from the
mhm,
people that you're teaching, the questions they ask, the perspectives that they take.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
yeah, it's really beautiful.
Yeah, it helps refine the process,
Like, all right,
learn.
I could be a little more clear here. So,
Mhm,
yeah.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I love your passion for it, and I love the fact that you're inspired by other people's process. That's the sign of a really good teacher already. Um, what's one of the highlights for you this month since we've been diving into Venus? What was one of the highlights for you? You led office hours last week.
Yeah, it's really people coming to understand their individuality. Um, and I mean, it's been like this for all of the planets, but just being able to understand that energy alone
Mhm,
and how you can feel into every individual one.
mhm.
Really, yeah.
Yeah, isolating it so that you can
Mhm.
identify that signature, that piece of energy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been really fun being able to have those discussions with people.
Mhm.
since we're really digging into it instead of just having like surface level people asking how they are. It's like
Mhm.
the discovery process.
Mhm.
There's
Mhm.
like a guideline with astrology, but you make the path.
Exactly. Exactly. Going deeper and deeper down the
Hmm.
rabbit hole of you. Yeah. Yeah. As a reader, we get to do that on behalf of a client and with a client, um, which isn't surface level at all. I think I know what you're referring to, like on my live streams,
Yeah.
tell me about me. But, in defense of them, like, look at what pop astrology is out there. It's like, you
Mm,
know,
it's
taking the
true.
Myers-Briggs, right?
Yeah, I definitely felt like that's how I believed astrology was before I got a reading with you. I was like, oh, it's so much deeper. I need to know more.
I remember watching you because you were on camera and you started out kind of sitting straight up. And by midway through the reading, you were hunched in, your arms folded in front of you, your chin on your hands going, yeah, 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 more, more, more. It was great. I don't remember I remember you doing that. I was like, all right, man, I love this client. Um, but yeah, and so how is it different between doing a natal reading and teaching a class?
I think with the natal reading, I'm much more like a guide
Hmm.
in that sense. Like I feel through the energy, like for the client, or sort of
Hmm. Hmm.
beforehand. When I'm taking my notes, I'm like, all right, I think this is what they need to hear.
Hmm.
It's a lot more. It is a lot more like informative, like me telling you about you.
Hmm. Hmm.
With the class, I mean, both of them are like that co-creative process, but it's a
Hmm.
little bit more in depth than a reading.
Hmm.
And in the class, it's like helping you come to the understanding
Hmm.
yourself.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, you don't really need to know astrology to get a reading, but if you're
No.
taking a class, then I assume that you want to know.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you don't
So,
have to know anything about astrology to get a lot out of a reading. I look at it, a reading maybe as like unlocking the doors, opening the
mhm.
gates to understanding. And classes, we walk through those doors. So in different ways. So, and again, you never have to know astrology to get something out of a reading.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
You got
that's
like
our
a
job.
tour guide. Yeah. I'm
Mhm.
taking you around. I know all the spots.
Mhm. You know the good spots too. Let me tell you. Especially again, your passion with neuroscience. How long have you been interested in that? What?
Oh, gosh. I really got into like studying the brain and things when I was in high school.
Hmm.
And I'd taken a psychology course with
Hmm.
a yeah, like a professor of psychology that had come to our school to teach. I was so excited. Um and that really like inspired me. I don't know. That teacher was really good.
Hmm.
So, when you reflect
Hmm.
back on the things you really enjoy, it's kind of
Hmm.
that infectious joy. Um,
Hmm.
just so interesting because it was bringing together these other fields that I really liked, like biology and um, yeah, understanding people.
Right? Yeah.
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 So I dove into that, and then when I got to college and I took my first like anatomy of the brain, neuroscience, like mechanics class, I was like, oh my god, it's
Hmm.
not just up in your head how you're thinking; it's the whole body.
Hmm.
It's that communication system, and yeah, and then I was learning about, at that time, it was around 2018 when I was taking those classes, so we were talking about neuroplasticity, and I was like, "Whoa,
Hmm.
you can change the way you're wired."
Yeah.
Um, and at the time, I was kind of taking a lot of these classes because I was trying to understand what was going on with me,
Hmm.
um, and I discovered that, I didn't have to stay stuck. There
Hmm.
was, you know things you could do.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, really amazing. It's not too difficult. It takes a lot of dedication, but
Yeah. Focus, dedication, practice, being willing to fail a little bit here and there. Right.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that that's your interest. How do you pair that with astrology?
I really like showing clients how they can be like at peace in their bodies.
Mm,
Because a lot of times, when people are coming to us for reading, they're at a crisis point or they're lost.
mhm,
Um, and getting back into that like physical space within you and feeling safe um,
mhm.
can really help you find the way that you want to go.
Yeah.
Uh,
uh,
yeah, makes it easier for you to recognize when things are good for you and when things are not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you have a lot of good reference books and studies that you'll recommend to clients as well to point them for their own discovery. That's a hallmark of a really good consultant, is being willing to refer people out.
hmm Yeah, I
Mm,
really love um, like researching ways that people can do that since everybody's unique and something different will
mhm.
work for everybody.
Right. Yeah. No
Yeah.
one size fits all, but yeah. I love that. I loved observing your readings because I enjoyed how you held space for your clients. You made it very, very safe. In fact, that's consistent feedback from your clients, is how safe a space it is and how held people feel in there. I like that.
Oh, you make me
She,
tear up.
I am gonna make you cry, make you cry on the podcast. But it's true. It's true. Jen has a Cancer moon. It's on my sun
Yes.
and my Mercury. Um, so you're going to co-teach with me in the Natal Foundations course,
I'm so excited.
right? I'm excited. I'm excited. Now, doesn't mean I'm not going to be teaching, guys. Okay. We're going to co-teach. So I'll deliver some lectures and weekly, and Jen will hold office hours with the supplemental material that I created to help you guys refine. This is a twofer because Jen ain't no slouch. Um, but I like to empower people to build what they want to build in life. And so, what has you most excited about this? Especially since it's a foundational class.
Really helping people dig deep into the information and start to feel it instead of just know it or like
Mm-hmm,
know it,
mm-hmm,
but putting it into practice. And I'm really looking forward to those discussions again. I really love those. So,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
hearing people's insights,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
especially on like the beginning stuff, can be really philosophical. So I like
Mm-hmm.
those
And it's, yeah.
discussions.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I don't just teach rote. For those of you listening, I don't just have you memorize stuff. As Jen knows, there's a lot of discussion, some gamification. Yeah,
Mhm.
because that's a good way to learn.
Always games.
Yeah, we've got a little bit of Sag energy here, just a little bit. So Sagittarius is known for gaming and teaching and learning, but mostly the teacher. And Jen is the Sag Sun. Sag Mars too? No, Capricorn
Merc.
Mars.
Yeah,
Merc.
Sag.
Sag
Yeah.
Merc. You say your placements. I can't keep anybody straight anymore.
Yeah, Sag, Sun, and Mercury,
Mhm.
Capricorn, Mars.
Midhaven Sag, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Wise old owl. Wise beyond her years. Sage on the stage, cat on the side. Your enthusiasm caught my eye right away when you first took the Natal Astrology 101 class I was teaching. And I was like, oh my gosh, somebody that passionate for learning. That excited me. If you had one piece of advice for somebody just starting out to learn astrology, maybe they're thinking about taking the class, what would your advice be? How could they best prepare for this?
Really come in with an open mind. You might have heard things about the signs or certain placements, especially online and like pop culture, but put that to the side and really learn to understand sort of the energy, like set some time aside so that you can think about it.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it was like when I was taking the class, I had a long commute to work. So that's what I would do when I was driving to work. I would just be thinking about the like discussion questions you'd posed and the homework stuff
Mhm.
and taking that time every day to like some of it can be memorizing, but like the
Mhm.
deep thinking about it.
Mhm. Oh,
Um,
yeah. Like the symbols,
mhm.
learning the symbols, there's no other way but to just memorize them. It's like learning your ABCs. You don't think, why is A and B is B? Right.
Yeah, there's like a little bit of memorizing, but all of that information is to help you, feel into the energy, not to just be the right answer.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Keeping an open mind. That's good. The attitude of the
Mhm.
learner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot of support. Yeah. I think when people are afraid to ask questions, because it's been, there's a lot of educational trauma, from
Yeah.
school, you know.
Yeah. I was even a good student, but I still felt the
Hmm.
like fear to speak up because if I'm wrong,
Hmm.
oh, the horror.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, you can get taunted and teased or put
Hmm.
down. Or if you're too enthusiastic, a learner too. If you're the kid who asks for homework and everybody else is like, shut up, you know.
Oh yeah.
I was like, you know, and so sometimes people, there's a lot of reasons why people don't speak up. How do you encourage conversation in the classes?
I like to, as painful as it is, having to leave that time for people to be comfortable speaking up.
Hmm.
So I'm just like, I want to hear your guys' perspective so bad. And I'm
Hmm.
just sitting there like trying not to be overeager.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
um yeah, it is really creating that safe space for people to share. There's never going to be any judgment over a question.
Hmm.
um
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you don't know what you don't know. And the only dumb question is the one you don't ask. Because if you're sitting there, 9 times out of 10, if somebody asks a question, they're helping everybody else in the class too. You
Hmm.
know.
Yeah, I like those unexpected ones. Just kind of like, oh, okay, gotta take a moment and think about that.
Yeah. My favorite ones usually start out with, this is probably a dumb question, but, and they're usually really good questions.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, that wasn't dumb. That was great. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Nobody expects you. As I used to tell my double Virgo child, if you knew everything about the subject, you wouldn't be taking the class. You don't need to know. You're here to learn. So, yeah. And learning to teach is a skill too. Jen's actually very good at prompting discussion and drawing people out. Right.
Yes. Yeah,
Mhm.
I love coming up with like multiple ways to ask similar things that might unlock different aspects of it.
Mhm. For
Mhm.
real. So excited. And the class starts in May. We're a month away. May 20th. Less than a month away. Crazy sauce. Right?
I'm so excited.
I know, right?
Summer school.
Summer school, 12 weeks. We're going to start with the ABCs and then go through it. The curriculum is all set. It's up on the Woke Astrology blog. I'm excited. Or website. Stay tuned. The blog will come back. I just haven't got to it yet. Mercury's retrograde. Miracles can happen. Oh my gosh. Speaking of blogs, you've got a new blog.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
What's
Putting my writing out there.
As you should. It's brilliant. What's the name of your blog again?
Modern Polymath.
Modernpolymath.com.
Mm-hmm.
Modernpolymath.com. For our listeners, what is a polymath?
Someone that is expert in multiple subjects.
Mhm. Exactly.
Mhm.
That's
I
exactly.
really like
Go ahead.
that term.
I do too. Yeah.
So like that describes what I do. So
Yeah. And a lot of us were taught you had to specialize in a single thing, but it really limits you. And if you want to be a good astrologer, well, you got to know a lot about a lot of things because you're interpreting. So how has reading made you, because you've read a lot of charts by now, which by the way, you guys can book with Jen, and you should, because she's amazing, amazing astrologer. How has reading charts expanded your knowledge of astrology?
oh my gosh. I can't even put into words how amazing that experience is. Getting like that real world practical application of it, or like
Mhm.
I just think it's so amazing, and I'm doing a chart and I can feel into it, and then I meet the person, I'm like, I feel like I know you.
Mhm.
It's just so beautiful. And then
Mhm.
getting to work out like all of the nuances of how it's working in their life.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I like really, it's kind of like teaching. It
Mhm.
expands your understanding with every reading you do.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, at a certain point, the only thing that makes you better is just doing more readings
Hmm.
because each one's different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Now, I always say consciousness expresses in a spectrum, and it's one thing to say it. What have you noticed in that, in through readings or teaching, how consciousness, like, we could say somebody with Aries qualities or, Aquarius qualities. How have you noticed that play out?
Well, yeah, I've gotten a lot of people that come to me and they're like, I don't really resonate with this part of my chart. And I'd be like, okay, well, I could see why that might be. It's like
Mhm.
factors there. Um, yeah, and being able to sort of expand what people's understanding of a sign is beyond those like
Mhm.
stereotypes that you hear,
The
like,
positive, the negative. Go
yeah,
ahead.
like, if you're a Leo with your sun in the 12th house, you might not
Mhm.
be a
Yeah.
classical Leo,
Mhm. Mhm.
but that doesn't mean you're not still that energy.
Mhm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like really having those conversations with people. It's like, yeah, that might be one way that it is, but it's there's more to it than that.
Mhm.
And you don't
And
have to express just one way all the time,
mhm.
you know.
Yeah, just like you're not happy all the time, you're not sad all the time, you're not depressed all the time, you're not anxious all the time, you're not, even if you think there's moments where it's grades, right? You can have low grade, medium grade, high grade. We constantly fluctuate. Yeah. What are you hoping to do more of?
Mm. Oh, more astrology.
All of it.
Yeah. Yeah, really more discussions with people.
Mhm,
I don't know, I've been feeling really inspired to do more lately. I
mhm.
feel the ideas brewing, but I know the way I work, it's gotta come out when it's ready.
Right, it has to
I gotta
percolate.
s I gotta stop
Mhm.
checking the oven while it's
Right?
preheating.
Damn it. Hate that. Um, I love that you bake. Jen stress bakes and celebrate bakes.
Yeah, all occasions,
All occasion bacon.
I've said that astrology is my life and baking is my hobby.
No, I love
That's
that.
I just made an apple cake today. That's
Oh,
funny.
yum. Yum. I'll come over soon. I'll go get some. If only. If only we could teleport. But yeah. No, you're remarkable. I really enjoy how you hold space for people. I get lots of great feedback from your readings, and I know you're blushing. But no need to be humble about it. You're very good. And I always say humility is for men. Yeah. It's okay to know you're good at something and you just keep getting better. Um, I'll just let everybody know Planet of the Month Club kind of came about because a couple of the mods, Jen included, bugged me until I started it. They're like, when are you going to do that? I'd be like, oh, I'll get to it. Like, when are you going to do that? And yeah, hosting discussions and gaining insight.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. So I really love how our pancake group, we all talk about astrology together.
mhm,
I'm like, I want more people to get that sort of training and education that way.
mhm.
It's just so nice.
Well, it is, but ours is kind of a unique situation, and
Yeah,
discussion groups are good. Um,
yeah. It's like a similar way to get that meeting
mhm,
of like minds.
yeah. That's why I made it. I tried it. I mean, there's always going to be a class element if I'm around, but classes, but the discussion where it's not just so formal, where people can just share,
Hmm.
you know, I think that's
Yeah,
so important. I
yeah. I
like
really
it
like
too.
the exploration space.
Hmm.
It's kind of, I think people are starting to understand it's not about getting a right answer.
Yeah.
That discussion that it's
Hmm.
all related to astrology, so it's never off topic.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It lends itself to
Mm,
expansion. Homework's not for me. It's not. It's for the person doing it to understand deeper and better. It's not getting graded. Sorry to disappoint y'all. You can I think by coming to a greater understanding of yourself, that's the grade, right?
yes.
Yeah. That's what I love. You enjoy that as much as I do. Um, Next month we're looking at the moon and planet of the month. What do you think of that?
Mm, we'll see how it goes.
I think people are ready. I think people
I
are
hope so.
ready.
Yeah.
What are we trying to avoid here?
I don't wanna do therapy. I
Right.
just don't.
Hmm. Well, and it's not. And I think a lot of
Mhm.
times because of how pop astrology addresses astrology, because back in the 60s and 70s, when they were trying to legitimize astrology, there were psychologists like Noel Teal and Liz Green who tried to, and I don't think it was a bad attempt, to
Mhm.
pair astrology and psychology. I think they neatly pair, but then you have pop astrology meeting pop astrology, pop psychology, and oh my God, it was a marriage made in hell.
Yeah, it's so bad.
And I think people will often kind of go down the rabbit hole of using their chart as an excuse for why life is the way it is, instead of as the tool for expansion beyond our limitations or seeming limitations. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Something that gets me. I'm like, why are you using this as a thing to beat yourself with when it can be such a tool for greater understanding and liberation?
Right.
Not get it.
Well, because sometimes that is the normal and it's what we're used to, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to have some strict parameters on discussion when we get into them. They'll be like, whoa. Both Jen and I have had our fair amount of walk through the dark night of the soul. So we know it's capable. We are capable of walking throughout the other side, and why you want to. I don't know. You got a
Mhm.
Cancer moon, you know how to wallow, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Sometimes it
it's just
feels
to not do it, the whole, like 72 hours. You're like, all right, maybe I'll take like an hour or two
mm-hmm.
and I'll go take a bath and
Mm-hmm.
maybe bake something, make myself
Mm-hmm.
feel better.
Exactly. Right. As a Cancer, I feel that. I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to look at the moon actually in a little different way next month than you don't even know. I'm announcing it now. We're going to take it from the perspective of instinctual consciousness through transactional consciousness, through transcendent consciousness. And we're going to deal with the concept of transcendence as posed by Maslow at the end of his career, which did not get published until after he died in 1971. So most of what people know of Maslow is the hierarchy of needs, but he amended his theory at the end of his life.
Yeah.
And so, which inspired me many years ago in my healing journey when I ran into it. And I was like, wait, why wasn't I taught about this in college? Because they didn't teach it back then. And it is about transcending your social cultural programming, even if your needs aren't met. You don't need the basic needs to covered to self-actualize. And that's something he uncovered in studying people like Viktor Frankl, so who had none of his needs taken care of when he started self-actualizing
Mm.
because he was on a Nazi death march.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So that way, I think when we look through that lens, I think that'll help us navigate what could be very sensitive territory. Did you get the pun?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh, Jen, I so love you. Um, oh, I'm excited to have you teach, be my co-teacher through this. So this is going to be good experience for you. And you guys will get double the fun because you'll have more attention on you as students. So you'll have my weekly lectures and you'll have Jen playing cleanup at the end of the week with supplemental exercises. So it's going to be super fun. We start May 20th. If you're a patron, you get your special savings. So don't forget to read your crunch report. Right? They who read save. All right, Jen. Thank you. Our modern polymath, Jennifer Russell. Always so good to speak with Jen. True story. Instead of closing out the recording. I actually hung up the entire Zoom. Poor Jen. I had to like message her in Discord going, sorry. Oh, Mercury retrograde. You just keep giving. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the lunar eclipse. I'll do an entire episode next week. We'll talk about that lunar eclipse and what it means for the world, what I think is going to happen with the Commonwealth and the monarchy, and what that is truly symbolic of. And for those of you new listening, I was a political analyst, trained political analyst. That's what I went to college for, and I worked for multinationals after college back in the 90s, before I became an astrologer. And just like we were talking about being specialists in more than one thing, being polymaths, that's what makes you a very good astrologer, because we're interpreting symbols, and each symbol represents hundreds of thousands of things, and you have to know which direction to pick. And so next week, I'll talk about that lunar eclipse on May 5th/6th and what I think it means for the monarchy, for the Commonwealth, and for the world economy, because it's, yeah. So let's do some astrology Q&A for this week. Astrology Q&A. And the questions are coming in from patrons. Ooh, I see I got a bunch of new questions. Oh, this is exciting. All right. So I just kind of pick these at random, guys. Let's see. Moving it forward here. What have I got now? Let's see. All right, somebody else is asking about how to read. This is from Jane. How to read the horoscopes. You are not looking at your moon. All you're looking at, the reason I have you find your rising sign is because it kind of sets the houses. Okay. It's what sets the houses. So I have a Scorpio rising. Okay. So then I can count around the houses. So if the moon is in Taurus and I have a Scorpio rising, Taurus is in my 7th house. It's a way to identify what house you're reading for. But if this isn't making sense to you, okay, all right, so you're not reading ever for your sun sign in a horoscope. Don't read for your sun sign. Your sun sign has nothing to do with day-to-day activity. It is the houses that govern the activity of the day. The transiting moon, okay, which is how I write my horoscopes, the transiting moon is triggering off the day-to-day activity. Okay. So you're not looking at your sun. You're looking for, honestly, just look at the rising sign horoscopes for your rising sign. All right. You can follow the instructions in the horoscopes. I haven't made the walkthrough video yet. I will. It's a little complex because astrology isn't straightforward. It's just not. There's a lot of, it kind of depends. It's not every chart's a little different. Okay. So you want to look at where the transiting moon is moving through. I've broken down the days. I've already factored out the houses. Just read for your rising sign. Okay. In general, that should do the trick for like 60% of people. If you're in the other 40%, hold on for the walkthrough video. Okay. All good astrologers write horoscopes like this. They just don't tell you what they're doing, and they just tell you read for the rising sign. Anybody saying, oh yeah, sure, go ahead, read for your sun sign, it's because they don't want to have this conversation and they don't want to have to explain it to you. Okay, that's the reason why. All right, I hope that helped. Just read for your rising sign. Okay. The moon is not. Oh, by the way, I was gonna say, you said the moon is often in. The moon goes through a sign every 2.5 days. It goes through all of the signs in a 29-day period. Okay, 28.5 days is the lunar cycle. It goes through all of the signs. So, there we go. Let's see. I've answered that one. Let's see. Getting to another one. Ooh, what have I got here? All right, this is from Maverick. What does it mean when the transiting north node is opposite your natal Pluto, which means that the transiting south node is conjunct your Pluto? Because remember, if the north node is in one spot, the south node is exactly opposite it because they are calculation points. They are not real objects in the sky. They are calculation points. Every planet has a north and a south node, not just the moon. Does it have any altered significance if it occurs during a new moon eclipse? It happens every 19 years. Okay. It happens every 19 years. That is the cycle for the nodes. It is a 19-year cycle. It can be significant. It's about as significant as you are conscious of it. Okay. It's a time to release old habits. It's a time to see, to me, the more significant, it's not the north node. It's not like the north node is the lead and the south node is the supporting actor. The conjunction is the more serious aspect. It's a time to let go of old habits, of old behaviors, of past ideas, and depends on where your Pluto is in your chart. Okay. I hope that answered that. I will say I think people overly emphasize the nodes in astrology. I think it's a rookie mistake, and I'm not calling you a rookie, Maverick. You know me and I love you. Maverick studied with me. They're an amazing astrologer. And I look forward to having them in some of my more advanced classes. And I'm not pitching. I just know what good they'll do with the information. I'm going to say people overemphasize the nodes to the detriment of understanding the rest of the chart. So it is timing. It is a time to let go of some old stuff. Okay. And that's what it is. You can't grab new stuff if you don't let go of old stuff. That's a good question. Make me have to think on my feet. I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it. Let's go back here. Uh-oh. Responses. Here we go. Oh, goodness sakes. What did I do? Question, responses. There we go. Pull it back here. Again, I'm just doing things at random. Let's see, what have I found here? I haven't deleted these, so I'm trying to make sure I didn't read it. All right. I think I answered this before, but I'm going to answer it again. So this is from Alyssa. I've heard you say that degree theory is incorrect. You would be correct in me saying it is incorrect. It is superstitious nonsense. Nonsense. Applying divinatory meaning to the 360 degrees of a natal chart, because it's a circle, is belying the fact that this is a navigational chart. It is a map of the sky. And I know some people will try to give credence through Sabian symbols, and I'm going to argue Sabian symbols are astrology adjacent, but they're not true astrology. Okay, this was something that Mark Edmund Joan and I believe it was Elise Wheeler, I know her last name was Wheeler, she channeled the information. And so it's interesting, it's symbolic, it's esoteric, but it's not astrological inherently. Degree theory is also not astrological. It's not part of it. I don't care that the guy used 1,500 charts. That's not a very big sample. Okay. And it leads a lot of people into determinism. So to follow up with the rest of your question, which does that mean I don't use decans? Decans are classical astrology. Decans are not originating in degree theory. Decans are part of classical astrology. So yes, I do use decans. I do. I tend to look at them with signs versus planets, because I think it's a descriptor of the energy versus things, which would be luminaries and planets. But yeah, Descants is classical astrology. That's the problem with degree theory. It's a jumbled mess of kind of sort of astrology. And am I throwing the gauntlet down? Not at you. Not at you, Alyssa. But I sure as hell am out in the rest of the astrological world. And I've had people come up to me on a live stream going, well, that person passed away. Would you say it to their face if they were alive? I'm like, yeah, I would, especially at an astrological conference. I think it's superstitious mumbo jumbo. And I think we can be metaphysicians and not have to make crap up. And if it diminishes people, if it makes people feel like they're fated and it diminishes the role of free will, well, that's not the team I'm on. I'm team self-actualization, which is not a selfish thing to do. The more you self-actualize, the more you're better able to find interdependent relationships and be more aware of people around you, you know. But just feeling fated, you know, I get too many people coming in freaked out because they think they have an evil degree in their chart. And that's ridiculous. Degrees can neither be good nor evil. They are. They simply are. They can show the maturity of a sign, of a placement. That's different. That's not good and bad. That's just expression of energy, whether it's in its potential or its maturity. Good question. Good question. Not being frustrated at you, just answering the question. I probably again answered that before, but it's a passion of mine. Alyssa, what does it mean when Saturn transits your natal moon? Well, it depends on the planet. I mean, it depends on the sign Saturn's in. It depends on your moon placement. But in general, you're learning how to kind of structure your instinctual reactions. If you're a knee-jerk reactive person, you're going to have some problems in the world. You're going to have to learn how to curb your reactivity and learn how to be responsive. You may not be able, for some people, it may be you're in a situation where you just can't deal with your feelings in that moment. You're going to have to just plug along until you can. It can also be a time where you really have to see, it depends again what sign is your moon in, what house is it in. Because if your emotional needs aren't being met, you'll really, really feel it during that transit, and you'll be looking at like, okay, I need to set up some rules, some boundaries. It's a great time to learn emotional boundaries. Not only to set them with other people, but to implement them yourself, and because, it's really easy to point the finger when other people don't have good boundaries, but when we don't have good boundaries, learning that is a tough one, huh? So that can be part of that. Hope that helps. Going back. I'm just picking these at random. Let's see what else I have. Oh, okay. I think I've answered that one before. These are all good questions. Hang on. I'm going to do one more to round out the episode. Let's see. I've answered that one before. Let's come back. I answered that one. Coming back. We answered a lot of questions. Oh, this is a good question from Alyssa. Is evolutionary astrology the same thing as applied astrology and progressed astrology? Are there different branches within tropical astrology? So first of all, tropical astrology has a lot of different branches. Evolutionary astrology is its own branch of astrology. I say progressed evolutionary astrology and progressed evolutionary applied astrology to describe the astrology I do. I find that evolutionary astrology, which I studied, and I studied with Jeffrey Wolf Green, one of the founders of it. He and Stephen Forrest were the evolutionary astrology daddies when I was coming of age as an astrologer. I find that it's still very binary. I find that it's very primal urges driven, me man, you woman, this is the sex drive. It's kind of a product of the generation of the people who pioneered it. And that isn't to diss on them. Their work was groundbreaking, I think we need to progress the narrative. I think we need to move beyond gender. And I've been making that argument since the 90s when I started studying astrology. We didn't call it non-binary back then. We looked at androgyny. We looked at gender neutral. We were exploring the idea of social constructs. And my argument was, if you wanted to progress society, we had to evolve the narrative. And so that's why I make it a very clear distinction. I'm not just an evolutionary astrologer. I'm a progressive evolutionary astrologer. Applied astrology is like applied physics. You're using it. It's not just theory. Theoretical and research astrology is great. I love it. I love doing theoretical stuff for my own pleasure. But if I'm going to teach it, I'm going to teach you how to use it. Applied astrology is using the information for your, to grow, to use astrology as a tool for growth. It's to use it for timing. Applied means you're using it. So when I say I'm a progressive evolutionary astrologer, I mean, I'm looking at astrology as a tool for growth. And I use progressive interpretations. Okay, so it's just a way to describe and define. Mundane astrology is a school of Western tropical astrology, mundane astrology, psychological astrology. And I would say evolutionary astrology kind of follows within that, but kind of has a blend of metaphysics in with it. And I also do esoteric astrology, which is different from those. So there's lots of different kinds of astrology. I use these terms to clarify what I mean. So when I'm teaching, people understand. I'll give a classical understanding. This is what you mostly hear this is called, and this is why people describe this energy this way. This is the social construct behind it. And here's a progressive evolutionary interpretation. Okay. And depending on the consciousness or what's going on, this is how we can apply the information. I just want things to grow and evolve. I think we have to be very, very careful about making things so rigid that we stay in a patriarchal box. So that's why I call what I call it, if that makes sense. I hope that made sense, as much sense as mud. All right. It's late and I got to get up. I got stuff to do, people to talk to. I'm going to be a guest on a podcast. I'll let you know which one next week. When I know when it's going to air and what we're going to talk about. It should be fun. Trying to get out there a little more. Get out there with my NPR voice. All right. Thank you for listening. Next week, we'll talk about that big lunar eclipse. Make sure you subscribe to the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. If you're not a patron, heck, come on over. Go to patreon.com/The Awake Space. See you next week.